arbitration cannot be a solution. Is there another one that you see?
Not at this point. At this point, I mean, we've spent time at the bargaining table over the last number of weeks, and we came to a tentative agreement. Agreement that was recommended and endorsed by the STF leadership. Obviously, it was a close ratification vote that was lost, but and I guess that's really where that's why we see binding arbitration as the best option going forward. There's clearly some sort of divide between the STF leadership and the membership on this, and so certainly I think it's a good opportunity for a fair and third-party process to come in and figure out how to get a deal done and really provide certainty for students and families going forward.
Of the bargaining unit basically saying, look, we need the best deals at the table, but they all say you guys don't particularly want to bargain. What's your reaction to the notion that from the STF leadership that says that you guys don't want to bargain right now, and that they do?
I think it's an unclear mandate from the STF. I mean, we had an agreement that was endorsed and ratified by the STF leadership, went to a vote. Narrow loss. I mean, the government mandate, if you think about over the last several months, we have renewed our mandate several times, right? We've provided additional funding, we've provided additional compensation in the contract, we've provided certainty on funding going forward with school divisions. The STF mandate is clear on, as unclear to me at this point, and really the only thing the STF is being clear about is about sanctions. And sanctions that affect students, and that's really what this is all about, right? At the end of the day, everything that we do about education is about the students. And we're here, a couple weeks left in the school year. I know that students and parents and teachers, they want certainty to finish off the school year well and start getting ready and start thinking about the summer and the next school year as well. Binding arbitration is the most certain path going forward, and that's where. That's why we've proposed it. That's why government believes it's the best path forward, because it does exactly that, provides clarity to students.
Why do you think then that they think there's a path, a negotiation path, and you don't? I guess everybody in the province is trying to understand why there's this divergence that it's in reverse of what was happening before. Why do you think right now that there is no path to a negotiated settlement, which you frequently said you prefer, as opposed to the position of the teachers who say, yeah, we still can see a path somewhere?
Yeah, and again, that's where it's a little bit difficult to understand, and that'd be a great question for Ms. Beacott and the STF. Again, I have said that we wanted to come to a deal at an agreement at the bargaining table. We did that several weeks ago, and that was a deal that when our bargaining committee left the room, there was agreement on all points from the teachers bargaining committee, and a willingness to endorse and recommend that deal to their members. Obviously, that deal was not ratified, and this is where, again, the mandate of government has been additional funding, additional compensation, pilot projects to help address some of the challenges that we're seeing in the project, movement on classroom safety, movement on benefits, and then I would also just say on the compensation piece, this compensation piece has been agreed to now, or we have ratified or tentative agreements with close to 20 other tables around the province. So the mandate has clearly been good enough for quite a few other public sector unions, and so again, from the government perspective, we feel like we came to the agreement several weeks ago. I thought the STF leadership would be able to get the deal over the line. Obviously, they were not, and that's really where we see this is all about certainty. This is all about, I just come back to that, it's all about certainty. I think about what families are thinking about right now when they heard last night that there's going to be more sanctions happening on Monday, and that puts extracurriculars in doubt for the rest of the month. And really a time of the school year where there's a lot happening, a lot of extracurricular activities happening, puts noon hour supervision at stake, and we know that how noon hour supervision, the withdrawal of that service has affected school day schedules and divisions all around the province. So, I think families and students are looking for certainty for this school year and going forward, and really binding arbitration is the best path forward on that.
We've heard, CBC has heard from some teachers who had told us before the ratification vote that they would not be voting for it, and their reasoning was classroom sizes. They wanted to see more of that detailed. What do you have to say about that? Because that is a sticking point for a lot of teachers who we've spoken to directly, like outside of the STF.
Yeah, and again, that's where, at the bargaining table, when it comes to classroom supports and providing, additional classroom supports to school divisions all around the province, and that those school divisions make decisions on how school communities are structured and staffed and what classroom sizes may look like. Again, we had come to an agreement with the STF executive on that several weeks ago here in Regina, and so which included $18 million being added to the classroom supports budget across the province. I've heard from several school divisions over the last few days that that money, that additional dollar, those additional dollars would help in terms of adding staff and providing more supports to teachers, but obviously more importantly to students, and so I guess that's where government has made some significant moves to assure, I would say, the people of the province and teachers in the province that we're committed to making sure that supports are provided. The largest ever operating funding increase in education that the province has ever seen. I saw there was a CFO from another school division, that outlined yesterday in the news that it's a record budget for Holy Trinity Catholic School Division. They're the largest budget they've ever seen. And so, again, this is, our government has tried throughout this process to show that we're committed to making sure supports are available. We've increased that number several times. And again, when it comes to certainty going forward, that's what really we see binding arbitration as.
Have you been hearing from any parents, any families who are frustrated with the process directly?
Absolutely, yeah.
And what have they been saying to you?
Yeah, I think, at the end of the day, parents and kids the kids want to be in the classroom. They want to be at track and field this weekend in Saskatoon, right? And parents want to make sure that their kids are getting a quality education. And, obviously it's, I feel like we've made really good progress at the bargaining table several weeks ago. We came to that agreement. Clearly there's some sort of divide now between the STF leadership and their membership. And this is where really, the third party binding arbitration, I think, listen, that wouldn't have been government's first choice at the beginning of this process. We've moved several times, and now we're willing to go to binding arbitration on this agreement and again, provide certainty to families and students and teachers as well to get an agreement done.
Can you explain what binding arbitration means to the government at this moment? I look at the complexity and issue related to classroom size and complexity. If an arbitrator said that has to be addressed in a meaningful or specific way within the substance of the contract, would the government now, if that was the arbitrator's recommendation, say, okay, we'll do that?
Yeah, I mean, that's my understanding of how the binding arbitration process works. I mean, certainly both sides in the binding arbitration process have an opportunity to put a submission forward to the arbitration board. Again, we certainly feel like the tentative agreement that we came to several weeks ago is a great jumping off point for that process.
And I presume that teachers will put that submission forward. So if the arbitrator basically accepted that submission, the government's good with that?
Well, I guess that's to be seen in the arbitration process, but certainly I come back to the binding arbitration process. I think we see the agreement that we had a few weeks ago as a great jumping off point for that process. Again, that was an agreement that the STF executive endorsed and recommended, and really, I mean, almost half the teachers in this province agreed to that, or voted to ratify that tentative agreement. So certainly we hope that the STF will take the opportunity to go to this third-party process. That's fair. That's I think that's a very reasonable approach going forward. Again, most importantly, because it gives us certainty. It provides certainty for students so that we don't need to have this back and forth every day, every week. What's happening with noon hour supervision? What's happening with extracurricular? What's happening with graduation? So, again, providing that certainty is of utmost importance to me.
This has been
Speaking of graduation, with it being grad season, what do these sanctions mean for students that are graduating this year? Previously, you had said your government would make sure grad would happen.
Yeah.
Is that still a promise you are maintaining?
Well, I'd say that's one of the most frustrating parts of where we're at today, knowing that there's sanctions starting again on Monday. Obviously, in some schools and some school divisions around the province, graduation events have already happened or are happening this week and this weekend, and it's obviously an exciting time, right? I mean, when you're in high school, graduation is kind of the big exciting event of the year. We've been engaging with school divisions, all 27 of them, over the last several months in terms of ensuring that they're ready to go through with graduation events. There's a small handful of school divisions that have expressed concern about their ability to make those events happen. And again, we've been asking those divisions, how can we help? How can we support you in making sure that students that are graduating this year have an opportunity to celebrate the hard work that they've put in, and that teachers have an opportunity to celebrate the product of their work, this year. So, we're going to be having that discussion again with divisions today or tomorrow on how we can support them in terms of the graduation events. But certainly, I think we're doing our best through the Ministry of Education to make sure that happens.
What kind of supports could those be?
Well, I think when we get some clarity from school divisions in terms of specifics, we'll evaluate that. Certainly, again, 24 out of the 27 school divisions expressed that they'd have no issue carrying out the graduation ceremony. So, again, we're having another conversation with divisions today or tomorrow to see what might be needed.
So we've spoken with some teachers who kind of have give us the impression that this has been going on a really long time, right? This has been one of the top stories for a long time. Teachers have been in this for a while. We've gotten the sense that they want what they want, and because it's been going on for so long, they're just buckling down. They're like, well, we've been in it for so long, we might as well get what we want. What do you have to say to that?
Well, I think, it's not just teachers that feel that way, right? It's parents and students, and I think, again, that's why I come back to binding arbitration is, obviously binding arbitration doesn't get everything done tomorrow or next week, but what it does do is it sets us on a clear path to completion. And I think, whether you're a teacher or a parent or a student or even just any Saskatchewan resident who watches and reads the news, I think everybody wants a clear path forward, and certainly we see binding arbitration as that.
Could you describe the tone of coming back to bargaining yesterday as compared to in May when the agreement was reached and everybody was promoting this?
Yeah, I would say back in May there was I'd say there was a very productive discussion between our two bargaining committees. And I have to give a lot of credit to Don Hoyam. He's the chair of the Government Trustee Bargaining Committee. Really, just as you mentioned, it's a long process. It has been a long process, and I gotta say Don has been a fantastic leader for the GTBC over the last several months. Really, I think I think probably the tone in the room yesterday was indicative of what we all feel in terms of a bit of frustration, exasperation. In terms of the process, and so again, that's really, I just come back to it. This is where finding a clear path forward, I think, is in everybody's best interest.
And that's how you resolve things is binding arbitration in the government's point of view.
Yeah, from our perspective, that's the best and the clearest path forward.
Can I ask you about yesterday's announcement
Sure.
quickly, because it's receiving some criticism, in fact, a substantial amount of criticism from some sectors that industry should not be writing curriculum or dictating curriculum regarding the oil industry, and that this is a problem because the company involved in it has been a SAS party donor. How do you and the government respond to those concerns?
So number one, it's Saskatchewan DLC staff that are going to be writing the curriculum for oil and gas 20 and 30. And I think this is the disconnect between sometimes what we read online and sometimes what I hear from real people out around the province. I can tell you that when I talk to parents, when I talk to teachers, when I talk to students, people are looking for more practical opportunities to get started on a career earlier. That's what parents are looking for. Parents are looking for opportunities for their children, and I can tell you, from living in my part of the province, there are some amazing opportunities in the oil and gas sector. We had an opportunity with Tyne Energy, who approached who approached the SAS DLC and said, hey, we see an opportunity here. There's a major labor market need in the oil and gas sector in the years going forward. How do we engage with SAS DLC to provide opportunities for students?
What is their relationship with DLC then in terms of their involvement in that curriculum preparation? Because I think that's where
that's the issue, right? Is the ethical kind of connotations of having a organization, a corporate company involved in the creation of curriculum.
Yeah, and I would say, SAS DLC is working on several partnerships with we already have several partnerships with the Saskatchewan Automobile Dealers Association, with the Saskatchewan Auto Body Repairers Association. We have a partnership with agriculture equipment dealers. This is all about creating good opportunities for young people in our province. And I think we'd be foolish not to take the opportunities to work on that. And I would just say, again, I know in my community and in communities like Lloydminster and Kindersley and Weyburn and Estevan, some of the best jobs in those communities are in oil and gas. And I think we'd be foolish not to try and create better opportunities for students to get an early start into those careers and those sectors.
For sure, but like...
Best by what metric?
Pardon me?
Strictly by pay, because oil and gas jobs may not be around for the long term, considering the movement towards green energy.
Oh, I think oil and gas has a long future in this province. We saw, if you were at Weyburn, if you're in Weyburn yesterday or today at the oil and gas show, there's a couple of thousand attendees in Weyburn. People who see a bright future in Saskatchewan in the oil and gas sector, and so I think that sector has a long future left in this province. We produce oil and gas more sustainably than any other jurisdiction in the world. That's something that we need to be proud of as Saskatchewan people. That's something that Saskatchewan kids can be proud of and really see a future in that sector. And so, I can see there's going to be years ahead, decades ahead, really, for great career opportunities in oil and gas in Saskatchewan.
Does Saskatchewan also see more sun than pretty much anywhere else in the world? There's other places to expand.
Yeah, and SaskPower is obviously working on expanding our energy mix in the province, but quite clearly oil and gas isn't going anywhere. So
I take your point about that there's tons of opportunities in oil and gas. Absolutely, you're correct. But there's also going to be, and is starting to be, a ton of opportunities in the, in energy sector, in the sustainable energy sector, in the green sector. New jobs will be created. Keeping that in mind, are you going to be watching that and possibly thinking about offering courses in the future for that avenue for students?
Absolutely. If there are industry associations that want to partner with the Saskatchewan Distance Learning Centre, we're absolutely open to that. And I think about the nuclear sector, right? We've got a decision coming up later this decade on the future of nuclear power in Saskatchewan. The Premier was in Estevan last week announcing the location of the potential first small modular reactor in our province. I think there's going to be some fantastic opportunity both in the high school space and in the post-secondary space in terms of how do we prepare students to participate in the nuclear sector, which that is going to be could be a fantastic sustainable baseload power source for this province for decades to come, and that Saskatchewan is uniquely positioned to take advantage of. Absolutely, we're open to those types of partnerships.
Why would the government choose oil as opposed to potash, or maybe agriculture? I realize you get the degree in agriculture, and maybe it's more post-secondary. Can you explain what was the thinking in terms of deciding that oil of all sectors would be the first one we did discuss?
Well, really, we were approached with a good idea. That's why we chose that. We're open, like we were approached by the Auto Body Repairers Association, like we were approached by the Automobile Dealers Association, like we were approached by the ag equipment dealers. Bring your good ideas to the SAS DLC. We're looking for partnerships. We want to create better opportunities for our young people. So that's why.
Those programs, though?
Absolutely. Yeah, we have a process. We've got a very competent team at the Distance Learning Centre. We're in active discussions with several industry associations about what potential courses could look like for other partnerships, and certainly we look forward to going through those proposals and announcing more to come.
Time for one last question.
I just want to know if in these two courses, right, or it was 20 and 30?
20 and 30, yeah.
Yeah. will there be a component to these courses? I understand it's still in the works, but will there be a component to these courses about alternatives to oil and gas? Because many people feel like that should be part of the big picture, not just a tunnel vision of like here's the industry, but also where other avenues are.
Yeah, these courses will be focused on the oil and gas sector.
Strictly, so nothing about the
These
environment.
the courses will talk about sustainability practices within the industry. I mean, again, we produce oil and gas more sustainably than any other jurisdiction in the world. And I think about even just the enhanced oil recovery, the reduction on methane emissions. This province is a leader in the world. Mm-hmm. Like, we're recognized as a leader in the world, and I think that's what will be talked about in that course when it comes to how sustainable the industry is. And again, these are not required courses, these are elective courses, so if you're not interested in the oil and gas sector, you don't need to take these courses. But we just want to make it available, especially, I think, to those students in communities. I think, like Kindersley, Lloydminster, North Battleford, Estevan, Weyburn, Maple Creek, all these communities that oil and gas, again, some of the best jobs in those communities. Oil and gas companies contribute to community events. Their billboards are in rinks all across this province. Why shouldn't we provide an opportunity for kids to...
Half the course will be field experience.
Yeah.
Can you just explain briefly how that's going to work? Is it going to be paid? Is it going to be safety training? Are they actually going to be doing hands-on stuff? How do you envision at this point?
Yeah, so it would be like any other sort of work placement in high school. It's not paid, and obviously, we would expect any industry partner that we're working with on work placements, to properly, train these high school students so that they can be safe on the work site. That would be an expectation of any industry partner we work with. And, again, just even walking after the announcement yesterday in Weyburn, walking around the show and having multiple other oil and gas companies come up to me and say, how can we participate? And so this is not going to be just time. This is, I can see we're going to...
That's hardly surprising. That's the industry. They're going to be...
Absolutely. They're very excited about that. So.
Were people suggesting the concerns that you've had here, I take it then?
I haven't.
So you're
Thanks,
saying
everyone.
industry was happy to organize at an event?
Pardon me?
So you're saying industry officials were happy to partner with government officials to the tune of millions of dollars at an event?
Well, I think industry is very happy that government is putting some thought into how we support industries in our province, whether it's potash or whether it's oil and gas or whether it's forestry, on providing opportunities for students to get real life experience. And if people want to take pot shots or criticize that on social media, have at her. But I would just say, when I'm in my community, people are looking for opportunities for their children to get experience in those sectors, and that's something I won't apologize for working on. So, thank you.